As Guyana sits on the economic and political crossroads, we speak to the nation's opinion leaders and decision makers to get their views on the challenges the country faces and the path it must take to achieve national development. Welcome to Nation Watch. Now here is your host Mervyn Williams, former member of the Guyana Parliament.
To today's edition of Nation Watch. Today is Sunday, 3rd March 2024. We inch closer to that anticipated day when we will get our opportunity to go to the polls and replace what now passes for a government. My name is Mervyn Williams. I'm your host for Nation Watch, which is a People's National Congress reform production. We're on watch for the nation. Today, we'll be discussing Guyana's investment climate, and joining me is a gentleman who is no stranger to the viewing, reading, and listening public in Guyana, Mr. Gabriel H.K. Lal. Mr. Lal, I'd like to welcome you to Nation Watch once again, and we need to do this a lot more often, with your permission, of course.
Well, thank you, Mr. Williams, for considering me to have something to share with our fellow Guyanese and whoever else wants to listen on this topic or any other topic. It's my privilege to be here.
Right. So, Mr. Al, you yourself have spent more than 2 decades, or at least 2 decades, in the investment business. So this is not a conversation which would startle you in any way. You're very comfortable in this area. For the benefit of our viewers, could you outline in very simple terms the elements which need to be present in any country for it to be considered by investors, whether local or foreign, to be a good, safe investment opportunity, considering, of course, that Guyana is the fastest growing economy this side of the world, the richest country per capita, and all these glowing and glorious terms that are being used to sell Guyana across the world, sometimes, well, more often than not, without regard for the realities of our country. But we'll get to that eventually. Just lay out for our viewers, please, in very simple terms, what are the prerequisites for a country to be considered a safe, comfortable investment opportunity?
Again, thank you, Mr. Williams, and good day, everyone. Glad to be here sharing with you. Investment climate. I think the first thing that we have to do is to identify what investment climate is, and we're going to make this simple. Investment. It's some asset, some holding, some money that we have in our possession and under our control that we are thinking of, we are contemplating putting it into in a country other than our own. And the climate, so it could be a basic shop, it could be a huge plant, it could be millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of American dollars, euros. But it means that we have to consider what is the climate that we are going to put our shareholders' money in, or our own money in. That climate is like it's a weather pattern. It's a long term. You're thinking long term. It's not a gamble. It's an investment. It's that this place called Guyana has what it takes. It is solid. It is secure. And it is hospitable. It is hospitable to what we have in mind. There's a mutuality there. There are some reciprocal benefits that can occur. Some of the vital elements of a welcoming, of a heartening investment climate: sovereign risk, political risk, liquidity risk, legal risk. So let me go through them quickly and very simply, one by one. Liquidity risk. If I need to withdraw my money to close down my investment, I'm able to do so with as little inhibitions as possible and repatriate my investment out of the country, in this instance, Guyana. Political risk, political stability, political stability is of vital importance to foreign investors because when there is that, then there's the strong sense that we are in safe hands here. We are comfortable with how things are. Legal risk, that the laws will not be changed, the laws will be interpreted as we interpret them, and that they are favorable to our visions. Our vision is to make money. Our vision, first and foremost, second and always, is to make money. Yes, we're going to provide jobs and we are going to engage in social services and so on and so forth. But those are secondary byproducts. My perspective as an investor, whether it's $1 million or 100 or $1 billion, is to make money for my shareholders, for my workers, for myself. That's there. And so all those elements, political risk, sovereign risk. Sovereign risk is how stable, how viable is this country? It is welcoming to investors, and the people in charge know what they're doing. The people in charge and the structure behind them are what enhances, gives me confidence as an investor. So those are some of the key components there that goes into the head of an investor when they are thinking of Guyana.
All right, I want to look at a few issues here. There's a document, Mr. Lal, that was recently published. It's called a safety index. Safety index. It was published by the UK news website of the year, the Telegraph. And it says here, I'm sorry, I'd like to get this up there. Bear with me for a minute while I try to get it up there with the help of my operator. This document says, and I hope you can get it up there for us, that Guyana is rated on the safety index at number 18, where it's ranked together with Belize with 43 out of 100 points. On top of this list as the safest area is Aruba, followed by the British Virgin Islands, Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, Curacao, and so on. But all the way down at the bottom there, with Belize and Haiti, is the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. I raised that with you, sir, because there are glowing stories about our country internationally, but the real stories are often not told. Not so long ago, I think there was a particular embassy in Guyana that issued a travel advisory, which put persons on notice with identifying some risks locally. There is an ongoing teachers' strike action, which, it pains the average citizen to see the manner in which the executive is responding to and treating with the issue of industrial action by our teachers. The local stock exchange says that there's a consistent decline in investment in Guyana. Of the 4 risk areas that you identified, against the background of these few points that I just raised, how would you rate Guyana in terms of a viable investment opportunity?
Well, I can look at that from two perspectives. One, all the good news, all the bright, gleaming news, fastest growing economy, the place to be, the next this and the next that. And I can be carried away, but I'll tell you, the rational investor, and hold on to that term, the rational investors weighs every element of information that they can put their arms around. So on the one hand, we have the bright Goldilocks stories, statistically gaudy. You know, who is doing 30+% GDP growth? Who? I Nobody's. Very few places are close to that. You go to the other side of the coin, and there's the safety. And if an embassy puts out that, look, don't walk at night, be careful around this area or that area, and it's saying that to its nationals and its citizens. By the way, I get those things coming to my email as a matter of routine. I get them. I'm part of that network. So I know what you're talking about. And do not be around places where there are crowds and so on and so forth, and there are protest actions. So, one, physical safety is a concern, because physical safety is not just about the person, it's about my infrastructure, it's about my plant, it's about my plans and my provisions, physical provisions, to make a profit. So if those are going to be threatened by what's going on in the street, my workers fear I have to spend money for extra security, electronic and physical security, then the question in my mind that I'm thinking, how viable is this investment in Guyana? In the context of a teacher strike, what's it now? Going into the fifth week? It's done the fourth week?
26 days.
Yeah,
Somewhere.
so clearly way over 3 weeks, and I think 4 weeks have passed. For us to have collective bargaining agreement, the government of Guyana through the Ministry of Education with the Ghana Teachers Union representing the teachers, there's no question that the union is the GTU is the authorized agent. There is no question that there are binding collective bargaining agreements there. So as an investor, again, I'm putting myself in that prospective investor here. And I'm watching every piece of news that comes out of Guyana. And I'm saying to myself, if these people can't honor, if the authorities, whoever they are, cannot honor their binding commitments to their own people, and we're talking thousands of people here, a block of thousands of public service workers, teachers specifically, then what kind of confidence can I have that push comes to shove or down the line that what has been signed to will be honored? How can we have that confidence that if you're going to treat your own people like this, when you are the talk of the world, when you shouldn't be talking about money stringencies, if you're going to if you're going to treat your people like this when they are crying out for pay, a livable wage, then I'm going to have second thoughts. The safety index goes to some of those things. And remember what I said, political risk, how's the environment, how conducive is it to my investment, my shareholders' money? Because let's take this a step further. If there's a problem with the teachers, or there's this development with the teachers, what other bargaining units are in the same boat? In what other areas have the authorities, meaning the government, let's be clear here, the government of the day, the PPP government, where has it again breached its duty? So if you've got a pattern, remember we were talking about investment climate, if you've got a pattern of this kind of leadership and governance behavior, then I'm going to say you've got some very restless people there. Those people are going to be agitated, and it may be a shorter than later time before things get a little bit too warm, for safe investments.
I want to revisit the teachers' industrial action in the context of investment from the perspective of commitments made and breached by the executive. But before I do, I want to go to there's a particular bit I'd like to put up there on the ExxonMobil issue. I'm not going to discuss oil and gas here. I'm simply raising, for the benefit of our viewers in this conversation, double standards by the executive. This is the Caribbean Council publication headlined ExxonMobil unhappy with Guyana government's plan to review oil agreements. And this is immediately as the People's Progressive Party came to government. And this report says that ExxonMobil has said that it is open to new Guyana government's interest in increasing the local content of its operations, but not to any renegotiation of its controversial 2016 production sharing content negotiated with the former AP and UAFC government. Now, this was Exxon expressing discomfort having regard to the People's Progressive Party's campaign commitment to renegotiate this particular production sharing agreement. There was a commitment by both Mr. Jagdeo and Mr. Ali, along with the broader People's Progressive Party list, that they were going to renegotiate this agreement. Now I'll go to the next slide, which quotes Mr. Ali in another news article, where he says, "Don't ask me the question 100 times," referring to the same question of renegotiation. And the article goes on to say that he said the controversial contract signed in 2016 is an inheritance of his government from the administration that was ousted at the culmination of the 2020 electoral process. And while the government thinks the contract was not the best, Ali said they have a responsibility to take inherited agreements and make do. Now, the level of double standard here, this whole business of making commitments pre-election, walking back on them post-election, and now to rub salt in the wounds, here is Jagdeo saying, well, let Norton and the opposition come with an alternative and I will consider it. As though he's trying to throw this whole question of renegotiation in the laps of the opposition, the parliamentary opposition, when it's his baby to fetch. He's the one who made the commitment. What are investors supposed to do? How are investors supposed to feel in uncertainties such as this?
Well, let's go back from where you started, when the PPP was in opposition, and it's made a commitment. We're talking here, our topic is investment climate.
Yes.
As a political party, your biggest investor is your voter. So I'm going to swing that there. Your biggest investor is your voter. And if you give your word to your voter, sir, then I say that you are duty bound and honor bound to deal with it, with what you said. So when you come into power, now you have the reins and levers of power in your hands, and you twist and twitch your mouth, then I, as a prospective investor or as a sitting investor here, will say to you or to my people, how can I trust these people? They flip-flop, they say they will do this, then they don't do that, then they say in that dialogue box that you put up there that we inherited this and agreements, I'm using my words, must be adhered to. Well, what about the agreement with the teachers union, sir?
What about the agreement with the voter that you're going to renegotiate?
Yes, as I said, that's your biggest investor. What about that agreement? You're giving your word there and then you walk back on it. You don't slow walk it, you walk back totally on it because ExxonMobil expresses its consternation that, hey, who you going with the thing? What are you talking about now? We said that this is it. You have got to don't tell me about the AP and UAFC. I am the government in power, I got it. I am in charge. I have got to find a way to get Exxon to that table and to say we've got to have a conversation because this commitment was made by this political party with me as leader to deliver, to do something about this, to deliver differently, to deliver better. We're not hearing that. What we are hearing now is about sanctity of contract, which is not only about double standards. I think you're pretty mild there. It's about inconsistency on the charitable side, and it's about glaring hypocrisy, really calling it for what it is. Because again, you say one thing in the hustings in opposition, you promise the world, like somebody in courtship, to get back to where you got, to get the hand of the bride in marriage, which is the power, and then you say, I ain't got time for you no more. I ain't got time. You jilt the voter. And that is what has happened here. And that is what is happening. Again, I got to bring this in, Mr. Williams, that what you do with collective bargaining agreements in the instance of the teachers currently, you sign to things. Do you sign them or inherit them and then you turn your back on them? I do not like, personally, if I'm talking to you here and you tell me this is what is going to happen, we don't even have a piece of paper. And you tell me this is what's going to happen, and I take you there at your word. I don't want to deal with you afterwards. I don't want to have anything to do with you. So now we have something, and you said that thing is wrong for this country. That thing is wrong for my voters and the people of Guyana, and I'm going to do something about it. So what happened now? You suddenly lost your cojones. You suddenly don't have a mind. You don't have a brain in your head. I mean, this is how I'm reading this thing. From an investor perspective now, those who are thinking of coming and plunking down their millions in Guyana, who are these people? Who are these people? Do they blow hot and blow cold? Do they have an on and off switch that when it pleases them to say this now, and it pleases them to say something that is radically different tomorrow, then they do that? As an investors do not like, sir, uncertainty. It is not good for investor confidence. As to use the honorable vice president's words, investors spook. They see Jumbie easily. So they're reading things that me and you in reading. Well, I mean, I could read them a little better than most people around here. So why you there so up and down, buddy? You're saying one thing yesterday and then you're doing something else today. And then you're doing something else tomorrow.
But which leads me to the next question. Again, as in the case with the last question, I'm not asking this question from a position that suggests that I disagree with investment. I'm putting this question to you to ask for some clarity, to get your perspective on this issue for the benefit of our viewers. The Qatari hotel deal. Government of Guyana, the executive, they went there with the potential investors and they turned the sod, and I understand that work has commenced on the construction of the hotel there on what is the National Insurance Sports Club ground and the Guyana National Service Sports Club ground. Now we're hearing that those properties were gifted to the Mayor and City Council of Georgetown for specific purposes. And those purposes were in fact what they were being used for up to recent days. So now the question is, does the government of Guyana, through the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission, have ownership and control of these properties? Or is there validity in the transport being floated by the mayor and city councillors of the city of Georgetown? But more importantly, is this not a question that should have been addressed to finality before an investment opportunity is discussed, finalized, and sod turned? Is this responsible management of a large investment by a government? Is this encouragement for potential investors who have their millions and tens of millions to bring into this country to invest?
No, no, no to both questions. It is not encouraging investors. It's not responsible, operating responsibly. So let's get that on the table. Let's also get on the table this. You would not be hosting this conversation, and I will not be participating in it, given where Guyana is. Pre-oil, if we cannot speak welcomingly, with conditions, of course, about foreign investment, foreign direct investment, and so on and so forth. We need that capital. We need that technology. We need that know-how, whatever form it takes, whatever combination it takes. So yes, we've got to be, now that we have got this sector, this oil and gas sector, that knows no limits almost, in my opinion, we have got to have a pro-investor investment hat on. However, having said that, let me qualify that quickly. It's not about a couple of hundred jobs and the matter is over. It's about the entire menu of provisions within the investment that stand to benefit the Guyanese people. I've been hearing the president speak about, oh, investors, an investment destination, and so on and so forth. It's got to have, it's got to have that component, my brother, where investment is not only to the paramount benefit of the investor. There's another creature called the Guyanese people. You are one of them, I think, respectfully, I'll say, and I am, I think, hopefully, right? Still am. Now, here's this. Where's this balance in terms of the terms, etc., in these things? We had, interestingly, during the first weeks of that teacher strike, there was the Ghana Expo. That was that.
Yeah.
It had to do with oil.
Oil conference or something.
Oil conference or something like that. And they took their protests there, their action there. And so far, I must commend the teachers for being in line and getting their messages across and being very, very disciplined. But let me say this. You had hundreds of people there. You had at least scores of potential foreign investors there. Where do you think they see people out there hollering about pay and working conditions? Is this really the richest country in the world? Is this country rich in ethics? Is this country rich in leadership principles? Is this country rich in governance commitments? I mean, again, reasonable human being, prudent investor, these things are running through their minds, no matter how you hide them on breakdown, no matter how you block them off on state media. This is what is coming up. The Qatari investment. Good Lord, we hear about democracy. Why the hell do we have, so much secrecy in this country? You're going to put that thing down there? The disruption, yes, we're going to have, progress has its own challenges. But there has to be that openness that President Ali promised 3 August ago at during his inaugural address at the National Cultural Center. Transparency and accountability. Excellency Ali, where is that in this Qatari hotel investment? You drop it on the Guyanese people like, I don't know, like a thunderbolt, and say, well, here, it's a done deal. We have had enough done deals that have blown up in our face. Why there? Now we have, well, it belongs to the city. No. The government has the right to do this. So the government supersedes. What I think is happening here, and I wrote something about this last week, President Ali, something has gone to his head, and he thinks he is Guyana. And the PPP government thinks it's the state. So we can ride over anybody, we can do what we want, and we will do it how and when we want. And that's what we have with the Qatari Asset Group investment on Carifesta Avenue. That has its history, that has its documented legality, if I may say so, in terms of the management of those lands. So for the government, I mean, consult at least. Let's have some consultation. Let's there be some discussion that brings in the the local stakeholders, and say and hear what is going through their heads. A foreign investor now sits back, and these are serious people. But these are serious people here. Now you're talking about big money, and they say, well, we want to come here and put up a plant. We want to be part of the midstream and the downstream operations relative to what's going on 120 miles offshore. And they sit back and say, you got a teacher strike in the middle of an expo. You've got this dispute, this dispute, and it looks as though the government is on the wrong foot and on the wrong side. So what kind of competence level is there, and what kind of confidence level we must have, we as an investor? How am I am the portfolio manager, I'm the CEO, Mr. Williams, of an investment group. How am I going to report back to my people, and they're going to say to me, you put our money in that place knowing that's the kind of people you got running the show there? I mean, somebody's going to get ousted, and they get hung out to dry, literally.
There seemed to have been a shift, and I'm wondering what might be responsible for it. I have my own ideas, but here's it. Back in 2007, I believe it was, when Cricket World Cup was coming to Guyana, there was heavy emphasis on local investment in the hotel industry, to the extent that for the first time in the history of this country, and never again since then, the National Assembly of the Parliament of Guyana was asked to approve an advance of a very large sum of money to a local investor. And it turned out that the money was required to complete that hotel on the East Bank. And I recall asking a question in the National Assembly back then, what are we paying for? And the person who was Minister of Youth, Sport and Culture at the time, Dr. Frank Anthony, said that we were paying money as advance rental for rooms. And my question then was, how can we pay advance rental for rooms that have not yet been constructed? But you get the picture. Mm-hmm. That the Parliament was asked to finance the construction of a facility because there was an urgent need, somebody had an interest, and cricket was coming to Guyana. When local investors embarked on the remodeling, redesigning, modernization of the Pegasus Hotel, that was a big thing in this country, where local investor was really stepping up. But somehow now there seemed to be little or no incentive for local investors, particularly in this hospitality sector. And it appears as though this particular sector is gaining more and more attention from international investors, and more being embraced by the executive of the country. Do you believe, first of all, that there needs to be more support for local investors in this area? And secondly, do you believe that Guyana can sustain the level of hotel rooms available in this country in the medium to long term?
I'll call a name. If I'm Mr. Robert Badal, I'm one unhappy puppy. You didn't call names. You spoke about Investor Group. Mm. He's one of the main guys with the Pegasus and its expansion and so on and so forth. And I commend him. And I think that luminaries in the PPP government were there when he cut ribbons and all of that. Some people from my church too. But local investors, you take that Qatari hotel and you put it there. What are you doing to that local business, that local entrepreneur? When you're talking about what's it, 260 plus, don't hold me to that, rooms and so on and so forth, and state of the art this and that. He's got state of the art already. He has got $1 billion or more put together, his own consortium. What I think from his perspective, and again, I put myself in his shoes, what has happened here on Carifesta Avenue? I am here. Everybody knows this is there. I am local, and now you put up foreign competition for me. It is not confidence inducing, sir. If I am thinking of putting up a little something somewhere, 20 rooms or whatever, a duplex, and I am not, I'm going to have second and third thoughts about that, because really, is the competition going to come like some superstore? In the United States, we think about a Home Depot coming in the neighborhood, and it wipes out all the family shops. Nobody goes there anymore. They can't compete. So it's the same thing here. We have foreign. We should protect our local investors who have gone so far out with money, with a vision, especially in the hospitality industry, to give them that confidence that they want to do more and that more will come into the field. This should be dominated by us. We shouldn't just be waiters and waitresses and bartenders and silent and secret investors. We should be in the forefront leading the charge here. I think we are becoming dangerously close to that point where we have a saturation of hospitality, suites and rooms, etc. I mean, we have an overkill right now. The president is fond of saying, and he did so when that sod was turned sometime around then, that, hey, listen, we've added so many, what was it, 1,200, 1,300 rooms, and so we've got American Airlines coming here and JetBlue and whomever else.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to run those things full constantly. You don't want to start thinking about, we're not talking about oil here, because Exxon has got the thing locked down there and Chevron is coming, so we're going to have two Exxons if that passes all of the challenges there. So I think we are becoming dangerously close to overkill in the hospitality industries. We are turning off our local investors in that sector. And really, there should be some protectionism. That's a dirty word. There should be some enhancements, some pluses, some incentives for them to give them that advantage in that sector. And I'm not seeing that.
There's another troubling aspect of this whole coastal line investment, hospitality, suites, and so on. A troubling situation for me, particularly. There's a report from November 2021 that lists Georgetown among 9 cities which are forecast will be underwater by 2030. Why would the government encourage investment of that magnitude on the shoreline with the Atlantic Ocean, or the shoreline of the Atlantic Ocean, when this eventuality looms large and ominous in the very near future? What prevents a government from initiating and implementing a development plan that seeks to mitigate such eventualities. For example, either going further inland or shifting from coast to hinterland. What message is the government sending to investors, international investors, and local investors when it comes to shoreline investment opportunities?
Well, we're talking about a contradiction here because 2030 is not 6 years from now. 2030 is tomorrow. If that forecast holds, this thing is hanging over our head right now. So we've got to take this. We like to talk about things going out to 2050 and 30 years from now, and we're preparing for the 22nd century. When you put that Qatari hotel there, and you are thinking most likely, I think that's the beginning, and going further down the line, that is where it's going to be dotted with structures of that nature. So there's a contradiction. You're talking about a city somewhere far inland, I think closer to the highway, and make up your mind. This is going to be our primary focus, and our timeline is 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and we're going to turn the sun on that. In the meantime, this is what is going to happen here. So if you want to operate on 2 tracks or 3 tracks, you've got to think about where, as you just said, Georgetown is, and how we're going to do that. How are we going to face up to that? Listen to this. Is it possible that that shoreline that you talked about, there's some huge plans for that, where it becomes like a docking station, and I'm going to go tread lightly here, a docking station for cruise ships. I mean, you're talking about a lot of work here. You're talking about a lot of work and a lot of money. And so now you have a shoreline that have all those people coming here wanting to drink rum and gamble and sample the flesh of the city. So is that part, I mean, that's investment also. I put to you, gambling and prostitution, they're part of the hospitality industry. So is that part of the unsaid contemplation here? Maybe not locally, but foreign, that if we can do that down there, we're doing so much. So now you start with a Qatari. Look what we have there. We have the Pegasus, we have the Marriott. The Pegasus has been there for the longest while. The Marriott is relatively new, and you've got the Qatari people who are going to be done in 2-3 years. What else is there that contradicts or conflicts that this place is sinking or this place could be under? And really, our contingency, our vision is for someplace else, and we're going to have a cluster of this kind of hospitality elements in that vicinity. I simply can't understand what's going on here. That you put a Qatari there. Why did it have to be there? We've got all this? Why does it have to be there? And what other plans are in mind for that space there? Go from, what do they call that, the jetty? Go from there and go further up the East Coast, between there and UG. What is going on there? Are we going to hear more Qataris along that stretch? I wouldn't put it past the realm of possibility.
Mr. Lyle, we're running down on time. These conversations definitely lead to the need for more time. But I want to come back local now. And I want to look at commitments made by the executive to the workforce of this country, to the electorate of this country while they were in opposition. And have a look at the way they have backpedaled on those commitments. And we have a little bit of a footage we'll show there. And how, in fact, they are treating the electorate, treating the workers of this country, on whose back the road to get votes, and in the minds of many, not sufficient to be in government. But the reality is slightly different. So here is Mr. Ali when he was in opposition, speaking of the importance of these three categories of workers, and Mr. Jagdeo embracing the APNU's reintroduction of collective bargaining and demanding that the public servants demand of Mr. Granger's administration at least 50% wage increase. Let's look at this and then let's have a brief.
What about the nurses, the teachers? What about the police workers, the police officers? Aren't they equally important? Aren't they equally important? Mr. Speaker.
I'm glad that the government has reintroduced collective bargaining, and I hope that the public service union will request at least a 50% increase in wages and...
Right. So here are the advocates for the workers of this country while in opposition. And now we have a situation where the teachers are saying, slippers on the ground, we ain't backing down, 6.5 can't work. And a little child was disqualified from a calypso competition because she sang of the 6.5% increase and asking the question, how do you expect me to survive on 6.5? And another youngster who wrote a poem was also disqualified. And the rationale for the disqualification is that they were political. Now, I know that there's a line between social commentary and politics, and it's perhaps not as clear as it should be. But why would you punish even the children for expressing a point of view regarding the hardships that they see their parents experiencing and from which they too suffer? Having advocated at the highest level in the land for the importance of these people to be recognized, these workers to be recognized, and for the workers to demand 50% salary increase. Here we are now with the same people arbitrarily awarding a 6.5% salary increase, and they are upset with the workers for rejecting it and demanding collective bargaining rights to be respected, a living wage to be accorded or to be afforded, and the other rights associated with them being workers to be respected. What does this say for investors, both local and foreign? And are foreign investors receiving a different level or a different type of encouragement than local investors are receiving, hence the inflow in the face of all these absurdities that we experience in real life now?
Well, my brother, you've got about 10 or 15 questions in there, or areas to be covered. I think I will startle our audience, by saying that since returning to Guyana, almost a decade now, I've never looked at one moment of Guyanese TV. Not. So I don't hear these guys. I don't listen to them. Mr. Granger, I've never heard him speak. So that will tell you where I am on television or radio. Having said that, I'm forced to listen to this now, and I've heard it before. It's easy to be a rabble-rouser, and it's easy to be a demagogue and engage in demagoguery. And you've heard two men who have gotten fairly good, if not very good at both. And they like it. They don't care how they appear to the world. They don't care that under their tutelage, their stewardship, that what was that, a 6-year-old? I think it's a 6 or 8-year-old. I mean, when you declare war on a child, and the Honorable Attorney General is going to tell me about freedom of speech. Does he really know what he's talking about? When you tell me about democracies here, it is not what pleases you. When you attack me for what I write, with falsehoods and deviousness of the worst kind. That is your idea and ideal of democracy. So when I hear the president going on a rampage there, and I'm saying, well, it's unprintable what I have to say, and it's Lent, so I gotta discipline myself. I don't normally curse, I don't engage in obscenities, but the prompting
Do
comes.
not
Take it
yield
from
to
me.
temptation. Do not yield to temptation.
Yeah, the prompting
It's
comes.
Sunday.
So an investor is looking there. This is what you do to your children. This is what you do to your teachers. Am I to be perturbed? Am I to be alarmed that I could be the teacher. I could be the teachers group. I could be the children of Guyana who are being shut down because I say, well, you're not dealing fairly with me. You're not dealing as was agreed upon. Now you ask that interesting question, or you put it on. You mentioned something there. Different standards for foreign investors. Look, there are clean foreign investors, and there are those who are on a hustle. There are those who are on a hustle. What does it take for me to get? What does it take for me to get the contract, to get a footprint in a country, in Guyana? Who are the players? How do they operate? What are their ethical standards? Who is the gatekeeper in the office of the president, the office of the prime minister, the office of the vice president, or the foreign office? Who is the gate? Who is the man of business that we have to deal with? And we will deal with that, and then we're going to charge you back when we charge you expenses. Why do you think, sir, that expenses have to be concealed? Monies paid up front to be here are recouped there. Read a book called Kickback. Read a book called Kickback, and it covers a whole set of territory. And
That's
I
written
don't.
by that's somebody. It was written by somebody named Sujaro, is it?
I think so. Yes. Yeah. I must remind me to share it with you. And it is about respectable investor companies, pharmaceutical companies, oil companies, including our dear beloved Exxon, right? Have engaged in practices that are clear violation of the Federal Corrupt Practices Act of the United States. Some of the investigations have been shut down. So they know how to do business, which ear to whisper in. So that is why some of our local investors are saying, "Wait, man, I got to go through all this red tape. I got to pay my taxes. I can't blink. I got to deal with the EPA." And how these guys are coming and walking through here like they're on an expressway. So I mean, reasonable people, sir. You don't have to be a partisan person. Thinking people. You don't have to be highly educated either. Say, what is at play here? What is at play here? That people come here and they have their dealings. And by the way, I am familiar, and I know you, I believe you're familiar with more than I am, with how the system works, how the system works here. The locals know it, the local investors know it. Who pay to play, pay to play, pay to have a presence here. So this is at work here. And for the honest investor, the honest investment group, the principal said, we in going there and we in doing that. They're going to get shut out. You can have the best PowerPoint presentation, you can have the best speakers, but at the end of the day, if you in talk in the language that has to be spoken, sir, it ain't happening. Investment climate, that's our thing. Investment climate. How warm is it? How hot is it in terms of how demanding? How cold is it in terms of how it freezes me out? All of these, the investment climate is the right word, it is the right term. Climate, right? We're not talking about rainfall into the end and it done in by 2 o'clock tomorrow, right? We are talking about a climate, a condition that is prevalent, a condition that is embedded, a condition that is continuous. And by the way, foreign investors, some are profiting from that, and some local investors, not the well connected, are looking and say, How do we get to be a part of this?
And the wider Guyanese population, the workers, the working poor, continue to ask the question to benefit in a real way from this newly God-sent wealth that our country has been endowed with.
Let me jump in here, please, if I may.
Sure.
We've been waiting for this oil a long time. My father used to have his people, and we were talking about 40, 60 years ago. I was a little boy. We got oil out there. These men were not scientists or geologists. They were simple men. He and his friends. They got oil out there, but we were always thinking about land, right, in the interior. But here's this. The oil is here now, my brother. My fellow Guyanese, the oil is here now. Why are we talking about maximizing revenues in the future? Why is it's always later? If not now, when? If not today, will it ever be? You always shifting the goalposts on the Guyanese workers, on the Guyanese poor, on the Guyanese indigenous, on the Guyanese outsiders. When is this going to change? Investment climate has a number of sides. People don't like when you have a groundswell of citizens who are unhappy with what they are getting from their patrimony.
When is it going to change? A question that lingers on the minds of all Guyanese. And I'd like to thank you, Mr. Lal, for joining me on Nation Watch today. It was indeed a pleasure and an honor to have you here once again. And I look forward to more such conversations in the future. But that's all we have time for today.
Thank you.
And for
God
viewers,
bless.
I'd like to thank you very much for joining us from wherever you are and for staying the course of the program Nation Watch. Until we meet again, God bless.